Hi, my name is EJ Massa. Normally when I find old meat in the street, I eat it, and then I get sick and die. I got better. But to ensure that I don't get sick and die, I need to control the process. And to help me do that, Umai Dry sent me some ribeye and striploin sized bags. You see, Umai Dry saw my charcuterie episode and thought, hey, we should get this guy to make more videos about our products. And I gotta say, that takes courage. Anyways, we're talking about dry aging steaks here. Some restaurants will charge you a premium for these kind of steaks. Some people build fridges and modify them so that they can dry age at home. Well, my wife won't let me devote the space or the money to another fridge. These bags allow me to use my standard fridge at home, no modifications necessary. It's just like how I did my homemade capicola a few months ago. And the wonderfully illustrated sticker on the package Umai sent says as much, giving you the cliff notes of that process. The package they sent comes with bags, and these act as membranes letting moisture out, but no bad smells in. It looks like this package comes with a slightly redesigned vac mouse, which will help me seal the bags. Umai Dry also provided me a Costco gift card, which I used to buy a choice rib roast. They didn't have Prime in stock, so I got the choice one to test. I think it should give me a good baseline. The sticker on the front of the package Umai sent me says that the meat will become woody, nutty, and sweet. And you know what? I'll be the judge of how much wood and nuts this meat tastes like. Wood and nuts? What is this, a steak for squirrels? Would you like a dry-aged steak, squirrel? Would you? Would you like a dry-aged steak? Answer me! Now to prepare the meat. First I wash the packaging with soap and water so that any bugs or bacteria or spores or other bad stuff won't transfer over to the meat when I take it out of the bag. Now that it's out of the bag, you can see it glistening with moisture. This is important so that the meat forms a membrane with the Umai Dry bag. No need to pat the meat dry. I'm also going to do an experiment and cut a steak off before I dry age so I can test the dry aged steak versus the non-dry aged steak. And since it's from the same cow, it should be a good comparison. And looks like a great steak if you ask me. I vacuum sealed my control steak and put it in the freezer until it's time to test. Freezing meat once won't really hurt the texture or flavor of the meat. If you froze it and then thawed it and then froze it again and then thawed it, you might start to notice off flavors and the texture might become worse. But freezing it once, it's not going to hurt anything. It's so beautiful. I almost don't want to risk ruining it, but that's what we have to do. It's for science. I stuffed it into my Umai Dry bag, I wiped off the entrance to make sure it's dry, then crumpled up the bag and put a couple of vac mouses in. Vac mice? Vac mices? Vac mice. These help with the vacuum sealing. This is actually going against the instructions. The instructions say you can do a diagonal seal and use one vac mouse, but I saw the sous vide everything guys do it with two, and I thought that was the lazier move, so I had to try it. I helped massage some of the air out, not only because it helps with a tighter seal, but also because, you know, I'm romantically involved with this meat. It's my little sweetie. You won't get all of the air out as tight as a food saver bag, but do the best you can. And then I did a double seal to make sure the seal is double, which is gooder. Yeah. Make it a good seal. I then put it in my fridge on a wire rack to dry for around 35 days, which I've been told is the dry age sweet spot. I want to show you something. I want you to check out this song my 3-year-old wrote. Wow, take a look at these lyrics. My son knows me better than I know myself. 35 days later and the roast has changed. It's got a hard black exterior. Doesn't look particularly appetizing, but it doesn't smell rotten or anything, so I'm assuming it worked. I cut off a little of the shell and wow, it smells heavenly. Kind of like the smell of high quality ground beef, but with a sweeter tinge to it. I'll cut a steak off and man, look at the color. I carefully trimmed off the edges to get rid of all of the pellicle, and there we have a very beefy smelling, wonderfully colored steak. It feels like it's super concentrated. This piece was closest to the one I froze, so I'll be testing it against the control. I cut up the rest of them, and then fanned them out inorganically on a cutting board in natural light so I can post them to Instagram. Because I'm a very cool person, and I desperately need you to know. I also took the pellicle stuff and put it in a food saver bag to freeze because maybe I can do some sort of experiment with it. That might be a fun topic for another video. And of course, I froze all the other steaks for future meals and to gift to family members.
My family is so lucky to have me.
The control steak I made sure to thaw out in the fridge slowly overnight. So here's our two contenders, and you can see the difference clearly. The dry-aged one is concentrated with a beautifully deep color, and the control kinda looks bloated and blobby and bright red. I seasoned them simply with my salt, pepper, garlic rub. You can find the ingredients in the description below. Seasoned all sides. I put them on a wire rack on a tray because I'll be reverse searing them in the oven.
I know what you're thinking. EJ Massa, you human beast hybrid. Why don't you reverse sear on the grill? Wouldn't that be better? And look, I agree with you. It would be. But in this case, I want to taste the meat, not the heat. And you know, because I want to really tell the difference that dry aging makes. And I don't want the charcoal flavor to mask it in any way.
I put a temperature probe in there so I don't overcook it. Then I placed them in a 325° Fahrenheit oven. Less than an hour later, the internal temperature reached 125° Fahrenheit, which is the way I like it. I verified with an instant thermometer, and we're good to sear. Then I heated up a cast iron pan with peanut oil to get it ripping hot. Peanut oil has a high smoke point, so I like to use it. Dropped my first steak in and seared both sides. And oh yeah, that's a gorgeous freaking steak. Did the same for the dry-aged one, and ooh, that is a much more beautiful sear. Wow. With our steak done and rested, you can see the dry-aged one looks much better in my opinion to the other one. But it's not all about looks, it's about taste. So I'll slice these guys open. The non-dry-aged one looks quite good. And so does the dry-aged one. Perfect color. They look very similar internally. I'm especially excited about this glistening fat here. I'm gonna try the control steak first, and it's a really good steak. Costco steaks are really good. Beefy, tender, perfectly seasoned. Can't go wrong with that, really. Now the dry-aged one. Again, perfectly seasoned, but oh, the crust is way better. The texture is super tender, a little bit more tender. The fat, holy moly, it's a flavor explosion. Overall, it's a much better steak than the first one, and the control was really good to begin with.
If I were to quantify it, I would say the texture of the meat is like 25% better. The quality of the sear is like 50% better. And then the flavor of the fat is like 200% better. The taste did remind me of earthiness or mushrooms or something, but sweeter and much more complex, like a symphony in your mouth. Now don't get me wrong, the first steak, the control steak, was very good. If they served it at a restaurant, I'd be like, wow, we should go to this restaurant again. It's very good. If they served the second steak, I'd be like, what are we doing here? We can't afford to eat here. Let's leave before they bring the check. It's a one-of-a-kind experience. My advice for you is if you're just eating a steak at home, like, I don't know, a normal person who eats a steak dinner, you know, just don't bother dry aging. Just get a nice source of meat. Costco was very good to me. Get one of those ribeye roasts, cut them up, freeze them, eat them while you can. You know, don't bother dry aging. But if you're trying to impress somebody, maybe you're going for a job, and you have to make this guy a steak. It's really strange because it's just an office job where you fill in Excel spreadsheets, but they want you to make a steak. Well, then you're gonna need every little edge you can, any way you can. So that, my friends, is why you would bring a dry-aged steak, and you would get this job. But you probably shouldn't take it because they're making you make steaks. What is that? It's just that you need to use Microsoft Office. Not steaks. But bring a dry-aged steak, you get that job. As for the Umai dry bags, they worked flawlessly. Look, I'm not in the position to get another fridge, modify it, so this allowed me to use my fridge, and it worked great. Although Umai Dry sent me the bags, they're not paying me to say this. You saw my other video where I actually bought the bags myself. I made the homemade capicola. Turned out great, and it turned out great here. It's highly recommended, especially if you're in a similar situation to me, and I'll put product links in the description below. Anyways, that's all I got for now. And if you'd like to see more experiments similar to this one, leave a comment below. Tell me what you'd like to see. Anyways, until next time, I'll let my son play me out. Hit it!